Okay. It's not very loud. Can you hear me? What? Huh? I know, but you need to hear me from out there. I need to turn it up a little bit. All right, let's turn up a little gain here. Good morning.
Morning.
One more. Let me go down here. Turn this up a little bit. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. There we go. There we go. Now you can hear me. Can you hear me? Okay. Good. All right. So let's get started. It's a minute or two early, but so what you have on your table, hopefully, if you don't, I can give you, I've got some extras over here. This little, well, not little, this giant diagram is, it is the kings of, so you got Sam, you hear echo? Yeah. Oh man, can you, where's that echo coming from? Is it up here or is it down there? Let me see. How about now? How about now? How about now? How about now? No, it's got to be down here. Let me turn this down. How about now? Is it better? Okay. I can still hear the echo. So maybe that needs to be pulled back a little bit. Yeah, pull it down a little bit, maybe. So got a little echo. Still there. Oh well. Just going to have to hear me twice today, I guess. So what you have in front of you on this sheet is the list of the kings. So you have the United Kingdom, which was Saul, David, and Solomon. And then you have the divided kingdom, which is Judah and Israel. And you have all the kings leading to, the end of the overthrow of Israel in 722 BC by the Assyrians. And then you have the Babylonian captivity of Judah in 586 BC. What I find sort of fascinating is if you look, so you see it says start, end, good, evil, right? Good, 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 evil. And then if you look at Israel, it's like evil, 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 good, evil, 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 right? So you have a whole lot of kings who were not good in Israel. And then you look at Judah, you have, a little bit of evil, a little bit of good, a little bit of evil, a little bit of good, a little bit of evil, a little bit of good. And when I say a little bit of evil, I mean they were pretty bad. But you can see where Israel has just gone off the rails. And a lot of this has to do with, worshiping false gods. So it's yes. Yeah, Israel and Judah. So the tribes of Israel and Judah. Probably, yeah. It's it's more than just one. It's more than just Judah. It's, but it's the lines are sort of changing a little bit every now and then because they're always at war with each other, and the only, like for 40 years you had Asa, and Asa was in Judah, and that's when things were good. But they weren't, during that time, they weren't good. They weren't good for Israel because you had a number of different kings. So we're going to try and cover, we're going to finish the rest of 1 Kings, and then next week we'll do 2 Kings, okay? And in its entirety. So, well, we're going to try anyhow. That's the goal. And then we'll do 2 Kings, and then we'll do all of 1 Chronicles, all of 2 Chronicles. So we should be done in like 3 or 4 weeks. That's a lot. I mean, that's 6 books in like 10 weeks. That's a lot. So I hope you have been finding, a lot of this has to do with Elijah, and that's good. So you got, Elijah. You got Elijah in 1 Kings, which a lot of good stuff in there about Elijah, and that's we can learn a lot from that. But okay, let's start there. Chapter 11 was the end of Solomon, and then you have chapter 12, Rehoboam. Rehoboam is the son of Solomon. He follows Solomon, and what happens with Rehoboam is Solomon, remember, had conscriptions. He brought people in and he made them work for him. And he really didn't let them go. Like, build the temple after they were done building the temple. Build my house, right? So he would take people and he would make them, I guess you could say slaves, right? Did I pray? I didn't think I prayed, did I? So we should probably pray. Gracious God, our Heavenly Father, thank you for this day. Thank you for your word. We thank you for the lessons that we learned from our brothers and sisters in the Old Testament. As we read the book of Kings, give us wisdom and guidance. Amen. So, so 1 and 2 Kings, it was never really 1 and 2 Kings. Remember, 1 and 2 Samuel was really supposed to be 1 and 2. It was supposed to be 1 Kings, and Kings was supposed to be 2 Kings. So you get that, right? There was no division. We've given that the division later, but originally they sort of all ran together, because they all tell the story about the kings. And so Rehoboam follows Solomon, son of Solomon. Looks like things are, what he does is he is given opportunity to seek counsel. Israel is saying, hey, we're done with this slavery, right? We're done serving in these conscriptions that the king has said. We're done doing that. We're going to go and just go back to work and work for ourselves. We're going to be free. But Rehoboam has opportunity, and he talks to the elders, the older group, and the older group says, hey, you should probably loosen that up. Let them go back to work. Let them go work for themselves. Let them go be back, right? And then he talks to the younger group, and the younger group says, no, double down, which that's what he does. And when he does that, then that's where you have the divided kingdom. You have Israel saying, enough, I'm done, we're out. And so we're going to get our own king. And that's where you have this, this division. Chapter 12. Not only that, you also have golden calves. Doesn't that sound like Jeroboam is building golden calves? Israel didn't learn its lesson with golden calves in the wilderness. I mean, that didn't register. You're not supposed to do that, right? Not supposed to build graven images and worship them, especially not. Remember Aaron, right? We've talked about this. Aaron, when Aaron was asked, why did you do that? He said, well, I threw the gold in the fire and out popped. I mean, literally, that's what he says. Out popped the golden calf, right? Now, Jeroboam is definitely building them, right? I mean, he's having them commissioned and made. And he's following after the gods of Egypt. And that's not going to end well. Right? That's not going to end well. So that's chapter 12. Chapter 13, we have this is kind of interesting. You have this man of God who confronts Jeroboam. Chapter 13, verse 3, and he gave a sign the same day, saying, this is the sign that the Lord has spoken. Behold, the altar shall be torn down, and the ashes that are on it shall be poured out. So this man of God, we don't know who this man of God is, but he was told by the Lord to go and deliver this message to Jeroboam. He delivers the message, and then, he heads back, a different sort of, he's headed back, and he's invited to eat some food, and he says no. But then he runs across this prophet, and the prophet says to him, come and eat with me. And the man of God says, no, I'm not permitted. God told me to go, leave and not eat anything in this town or eat with anyone in this town. And the prophet says, but God told me to invite you. So he lies to the guy. And the guy believes him, right? This man of God believes the prophet because, you're supposed to believe prophets, right? Not supposed to doubt them. You're supposed to believe them, right?
But whenever anybody says to you, God told me to come to you and tell you, don't believe it.
Well, but here's the problem. God told the man of God to go tell Jeroboam. So now, this is a good question. Does God speak directly to people today like he did in the Old Testament? I would say not directly like he used to. I think now God uses the scriptures, right? So that when a person says, God spoke to me, I always am like, God told me, especially, now the danger is, God told me to break the commandments. Now, would God tell you to break the commandments? No, right? God's not going to tell you to do anything that's against the law or against his law. So when people say, God told me to do this, or God told me that I should not be married to my wife anymore. Yes?
Out of evening prayer, from Hebrews 1:1 to 2, in many and various ways God spoke to his people of old by the prophets. But now in the last days, he has spoken to us by his Son.
Yeah, and St. Paul even says, if an angel from heaven were to come and tell you something different, don't buy what they're selling. So, direct revelation, I think, is Old Testament stuff. Revelation through the scriptures is New Testament stuff. This is where God speaks to us today. Now, don't be like the guy in the, in the pit of despair in the hotel who opened up, the drawer and found the Gideon Bible and flipped it open. God, tell me what I'm supposed to do. Flipped it open, and he read, Judas went out and hung himself. And he's like, that can't be the message from the Lord. And he flipped it open again, and it said, go and do thou likewise. That's not how we read the Bible. Okay? That's a joke. Come on, now that was a little funny. It's a little funny, right? That's a joke. That's not how we read the Bible, right? You pray, you read the scriptures, and you do what is lawful according to the Ten Commandments and for the good. Like, it's when a pastor gets a call to a congregation or to another congregation, right? Which one is he supposed to go to? Well, that's a question that, you pray about and you strive to answer that. Or whatever it may be. Go play volleyball in Austria, right? Well, okay, I'm going to pray about that, and I think the Lord opened up a door, and He's going to let me do something like that that's pretty cool. I'm going to go do it, right? But it wasn't like you were, walking down the street and God said, "Go to Austria," right? I mean, that's not how it works, right? So, but in days of old, in the Old Testament, there was direct revelation from the Lord. I believe that that's the second person of the Trinity in the Old Testament. I believe that's Jesus. And so this man of God gets direct revelation, and he goes and he does what he's supposed to, and then, then this prophet, who's supposed to be a prophet of God, lies. And what happens to the man of God? Well, he comes, he eats, and he leaves, and a lion eats him. Well, kills him. I think it's a lion, isn't it? I think we have two lions in this reading. Lion and a donkey. Doesn't eat the donkey. Leaves the donkey completely alone, but kills him. Yeah, kills him. Right? So, now that doesn't seem fair. Doesn't seem right. Well, he should have listened to what the Lord told him in the first place. Don't go eating in that town. After this thing, Jeroboam did not turn from his evil ways. This is verse 33 of 13. After this thing, Jeroboam did not turn from his evil way, but made priests for the high places again from among all the people. Any who would he ordained to be priests of the high places. And this thing became sin to the house of Jeroboam, so as to cut it off and to destroy it from the face of the earth. So, how do we get the line of David? Well, yes, David's sons and grandsons and family members were sort of cut off at different points, but there was always someone from the line of David that was, in that chair, and good or bad. So you see the chart. What do we learn? What do we learn about all these evil kings and all these evil, these kings taking? I think we learn that the Lord is patient. That down through the ages, he bears with sinners. And his patience is long suffering. So we want things and we want them. So when I used to have a T-shirt that says, patience. Had a big vulture on it. It said, patience. I want to kill something right now. Right? So when we pray for people say, well, I got to pray for patience. If you pray for patience, expect to be put in situations where your patience is going to be tested. Praying for patience is not, Lord, I want patience, and that means I want you to take everything away from my life that's going to cause me any anxiety. That's not how it works. If you ask for be careful when you ask for patience. Yes?
So the evil kings reigned a lot less than the...
Yeah, Asa was a king for 40 years. He's the longest one in the group in Judah. And he was good. But you see, when you read down through this, you have all these kings that are in, while Asa is king. What's the shortest amount of time that a king served? Was it like 7 days? And he was a ruler. I mean, he was a military commander. And he he killed the king and took his spot. And that didn't work too well. So Jeroboam, there's a prophecy against Jeroboam. It says at that time, Abijah, the son of Jeroboam, fell sick, and Jeroboam said to his wife, "Arise and disguise yourself, that it not be known that you are the wife of Jeroboam, and go to Shiloh. Behold, Ahijah the prophet is there." So they're always trying to pull one over on God, right? She sneaks down there like she's, not recognizable. I mean, she's the queen. Obviously, you know who she is. And I'm going to pull this over on God, so I'm going to fool the prophet, right? And what's the response? As soon as you go back, Jeroboam's wife, as soon as you go back and you step into the threshold, the child's going to die. So verse 9 of 14, "But you have done evil above all who were before you, and have gone and made for yourself other gods and metal images, provoking me to anger, and have cast me behind your back. Therefore, behold, I will bring harm upon the house of Jeroboam, and I will cut off from Jeroboam every male, both bond and free in Israel, and will burn up the house of Jeroboam." There are times when these kings repent of their sin, but it's not very often. So Jeroboam is at the end of 14 he dies. The time of Jeroboam that he reigned was 22 years. That's a pretty long time. And he slept with his fathers, and Nadab his son reigned in his place. So that's that. You have Israel, and you have Israel, and you have Judah. If you look at chapter 15, well, let's look at Rehoboam. Rehoboam reigns in Judah. Now, Rehoboam, the son of Solomon, reigned in Judah. Rehoboam was 41 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 17 years in Jerusalem. Now, remember, he's the one that, in chapter 12 was the one that sort of doubled down on making the people work harder, and that caused a division. But Rehoboam is there for 17 years. And then chapter 15, you have Abijam reigns in Judah. Now in the 18th year of King Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, Abijam, began to reign over Judah. He reigned for 3 years in Jerusalem. His mother's name was Maacah, the daughter of Absalom. And he walked in all the sins that his father did before him, and his heart was not wholly true to the Lord his God, as the heart of David his father, right? His grandfather, great-grandfather. Did I get that right? I think so. So, and then you have Asa at the end there. Asa reigns in Judah. In the 20th year of Jeroboam, king of Israel, Asa began to reign over Judah, and he reigned 41 years in Jerusalem. His mother's name was Maacah, the daughter of Abishalom. And Asa did what was right in the eyes of the Lord, as David his father had done. Now, that doesn't mean that things were perfect. They were having problems. It talks about the high places. So a high place is where you go and worship. And many of those high places still had false, idols in them. They were still kind of wrapped around this. They couldn't get rid of the false gods of the Egyptians. They couldn't get, and that part of that problem is whenever they took over a place, they were supposed to kill everybody, but they didn't. They didn't listen to what God had commanded. Now, I know that sounds harsh, but what happened is they took for themselves wives, and those wives brought their false gods, and that. I mean, it's the same old story, right? It's the same old story. Marry a Lutheran boy. Marry a Lutheran girl, right? Don't marry a Pentecostal, because you'll have snakes in your house before long. You don't want that, right? I think there is something to that. And I always tell my confirmands, I tell them, man, when you're, be careful, pick out the right one for when you want to get married, and find a Lutheran, or make them a Lutheran, right? So all of that is you got to be careful. And we see that it's not like the first time that ever happened down through the ages. I love, even though there was all this stuff going on, nevertheless, the heart of Asa was wholly true to the Lord all his days. That's what you want to hear, right? So you have Nadab reigns in Israel. Nadab, the son of Jeroboam, began to reign over Israel in the second year of Asa, king of Judah. And he reigned over Israel 2 years. That didn't last very long. Baasha reigns in Israel in the third year of Asa, king of Judah. Baasha, the son of Ahijah, began to reign over all Israel at Tirzah. And he reigned 24 years. Not a bad reign. He did what was evil in the sight of the Lord, and he walked in the way of Jeroboam and in his sin, which he made Israel to sin. Not good, right? Not good. And then in the 26th year of Asa, king of Judah, you have Elah, the son of Baasha, began to reign over Israel in Tirzah. And he reigned 2 years, but his servant Zimri, commander of half of his chariots, conspired against him and killed him. He killed him. And then, like 7 days later, and Zimri, he became, right, he took over. He killed everybody in Elah's house and killed everyone. And then what happened, he lasted a whole 7 days, right? And he was put to death. And then Omri reigned in Israel. Now, and then you get to Ahab. Ahab, this is 16, the end of, sort of the end of 16. Ahab reigns in Israel. In the 38th year of Asa, king of Judah, Ahab, the son of Omri, began to reign over Israel. And Ahab, the son of Omri, reigned over Israel in Samaria 22 years. And Ahab is the one who marries Jezebel. And so we have a lot of stories about Ahab and Jezebel. And they're all not good, right? Let's look up here. Let's see, where is Ahab on here? Ahab, 874 to 853. Evil. He started evil, he ended evil. Not a good guy. And while Ahab was king, there was a prophet in the land named Elijah. So you have Elijah the Tishbite of Tishbe in Gilead. And so Elijah talks to Ahab all the time. Like he's always saying to him, hey, you better straighten up. What you're doing is wrong. You need to stop it. And every time he does that, Ahab listens sometimes, doesn't listen sometimes, but his wife, man, Jezebel, she's out to get him. She wants to put Elijah to death. And so Elijah goes and he talks to Ahab. He fears for his life, and he runs to the brook of Kerith. And while he's there he says to Ahab before he leaves, hey, there's going to be a famine. Get ready. It's not going to rain for a long time. And it doesn't. It's 3 years, doesn't rain. And in that time, Elijah is told to go. He gets fed by ravens a few times. And then he ends up with the widow of Zarephath. And that's just this great account where the Lord keeps the bread, the flour and the oil jar always perpetually full. Right? Give me a little bit here, give me a little bit here, perpetually full. And it's always working. And that's good news. That's fantastic stuff, right? So it's constantly, God is caring. And what we would learn from this is how God cares for us, right? The Lord is constantly caring for us. Even when when the cupboard seems to be bare. When I was a pastor in Idaho, we didn't have a lot. I didn't make a lot. We had Andrew, and Lori was babysitting, and it was tough. I had school loans. She had school loans. We're paying them off, and we didn't have a whole lot. And so at times the cupboard would be bare, and at just the right time, the members of the church would bring groceries, or they would go, something like asparagus would have. So a lot of the fields around us in Idaho were planted for seed. So they would grow up, right, and they would seed. So asparagus, like you get the stalk of asparagus, that head would sprout out, right, and it would grow all these seeds, and then they would cut all that down and they would collect all the seeds. But what would happen is the wind would blow those seeds, and a lot of them would fall on the ditch bank. So everything was irrigated, and there was a ditch bank that ran along the field. And so along the ditch bank and along the field, these seeds would, right, and there would be all this asparagus growing up right alongside the road. And my members would go along and cut it all down, and we would get a grocery bag filled with asparagus. And we lived on asparagus for a couple of weeks, right? And or onions. The onions would be, in season, and we would get like a 50-pound bag of onions. And my wife hates onions, and I think it's because of that. So the Lord is constantly taking care of His people, and we see that in how the Lord took care of the widow and also of Elijah and the widow's son. Now, for whatever reason, the Lord brought about the death of the widow's son, and Elijah is like, what in the world, right? This lady took care of me, kept me alive through the providence the blessings that you provided, and now you take her son. What in the world, Lord? What's going on? And so he takes the boy, and it says he stretches himself out on him and prays 3 times, and raises him from the dead. Not too shabby, right? Raises him from the dead. So we have a resurrection story in the Old Testament, and we see the Lord taking care of now at this point the widow is not a child of Israel, she's not a follower of the Lord, but after that she becomes one, right? Now I know, I think she says, now I know that your God is the God of heaven and earth, the one who's able to raise the dead. And she becomes, a believer. And maybe that's the reason that she needed evidence. Now that's real evidence. If a relative died and rose from the dead, I think you would be, okay, I believe. Yeah.
People like that today, they want some kind of evidence.
Some miraculous sign.
Well, look at nature. Well,
Yeah.
that's not enough.
Yeah. So, that's people want miraculous signs. Bread and wine turning into the body and blood of Jesus is not enough. Water, used with the word of God, washing away the sins of that child or that adult and making them God's very own is not enough. Right? We need the spectacular and the miraculous, which, I mean, you know, everything okay over there? Oh.
She's okay. She trimmed, she lost her shoe and fell over, and she's just catching her breath.
All right. Shall we proceed?
I don't think she got hurt.
So, yeah, well, I'm glad you're okay. I'm glad you're okay. It's chapter 18. Elijah confronts Ahab again. This time we have this great account of the prophets of Baal being defeated. You remember the account, how that went down, right? So we're build 3 altars, right? And it's 3 times. That's 3. 1 altar. They build an altar. Elijah builds an altar. And then, pray 3 times. That's what it is. Pray 3 times. And Elijah, says, we're gonna burn the altar. We're gonna burn everything up on the altar. So, okay, let's make it happen. And the prophets of Baal pray, and Elijah says, maybe you better pray more because maybe he's sleeping, or maybe he's fallen and he can't get up or something. I mean, that. No, I'm not joking. I mean, I think that's what it said, right? I mean, so. Yeah, Baal. He's on the throne, and by throne we don't mean like we mean the porcelain throne. He's busy, and so Elijah makes all these jokes. Nothing happens. So then he says, "Now pour water on the altar and do it 3 times." Right? That's what it was. 3 times. Pours 3 buckets of drench that thing with water. And Elijah prays, and it goes up in like a bonfire. And it's the fire is so hot, it's just a smoking fire. And then all the prophets of Baal Elijah goes around. He was, man, that, every pastor's dream, right? To be like Elijah, right? Go after the delinquents. No. That's probably bad image. I did tell a kid during Vacation Bible School, put your neck right here. I didn't kill him. He lived. I didn't. I gave him a hug. He was fine, right? So, so. And then, you got the rain coming, and, everything is good again. But Elijah is still after Ahab, right? And Elijah flees because of Jezebel. She's trying to kill him. And he gets away, and he gets into this cave, and then you have this, right? You have this still small whisper, right? You have the wind and all this, the earthquake and all of these things happening, and God is not in those things. He is in the still small whisper of, Elijah, what are you doing? Well, they're all out to get me. You just killed all the prophets of Baal. What are you whining about, you big baby? Get back over there, right? And so, now, then you have this sort of handing the sword or the word or the cape or whatever. I don't know what Elijah had, but the mantle, right? He's going to pass this on to Elisha, and we're going to have good things happening. Ahab there's a prophecy that Ahab is going to die, and sure enough, there's some victories along the way. Ahab beats, the different leaders, but eventually he disguises. He's doing it again, right? He disguises himself so people won't know that he's the king, and he catches an arrow, right? Lives for half a day or something, and then dies. And that, but there's also this vineyard story, right? He's the king. He's got everything. Now, maybe I should have used that in the sermon today. Hey man, I like your vineyard. How about giving it to me? I'll buy it. How about that? I'll give you one of equal value. No, it's not for sale. Then Jezebel, right? What does she do? She has this guy, this guy, the owner of the vineyard, set up on false charges and stoned, put to death. And then oh well, here you go. Here's look at this. The vineyard has become available. And then what does God do? God gets rid of Ahab. Right? He's killed in a battle. Any questions or comments about that stuff? That takes us, I think, to...
The people on the Israel side, they're captives and civil, and then their sons took over, so they weren't any direct line.
Yeah, but the line of Judah remains, right? The line of David remains in Judah. It's sort of, you got to have a lot of, markers. You're going to run out of ink trying to figure it all out, but it does remain. It does remain. So I've talked about this book, and this book has some application to those chapters that I think is kind of interesting. I'll maybe share a little bit of that application with you today in 1 Kings. 12 through 14, we need to be aware of the subtle giving of our hearts to the idols of false religions, materialism, pleasure, and self-centeredness. The Lord turns us away from these traps and leads us to the worship of the true God and Savior. The Lord who calls us to faith must likewise keep us in the faith, which he does through daily repentance and in conjunction with his word and sacrament. This sacred history relates God's patience with his people whom he planned to save by the righteous reign of his son Jesus. So I think that's one of the things that we learn. But you have to be careful because it's very easy to be this covetousness that we're talking about in the gospel and in the epistle lesson today, and vanity is vanity, all is vanity. You work and toil, and someone else reaps what you worked for. We need to be careful because our life can get all wrapped up around stuff. It can get wrapped up around stuff. It can get wrapped up around having the perfect job or having the perfect this or having the perfect that, right? When this is our focus. Fix your eyes on Jesus, the author and perfecter of your faith. That was part of the theme for was endurance from that Hebrews passage, that's very telling. Endurance. We're going to run the race with endurance, and it's not a sprint; it's a marathon, and so it's very easy to be sidetracked by. It's amazing that all of the. So we just talked about this. Bread and wine, not real glitzy. Water, not real glitzy. But the things that distract, the things that pull us away from those, what are they? They are bright and shiny. You know, we're sort of heading down this way, and all of a sudden there's a strobe light blinking over here, and whoop, we're supposed to be running this way, but that strobe light over here keeps distracting us, and that's the things of the world. That was the problem in many cases with these kings. They got, the glitzy. Well, wow, man, we went to Egypt, and did you see those statues they had in Egypt? Holy cow, we should make them some of those. We have all this gold that Solomon brought and got. We should use that and build giant statues of golden calves. That's a great idea. Because Egypt has it, we should have it. That's just not, that's bad. It's those glitzy things that draw our attention in the wrong direction. And that happens in our lives as well. Nothing wrong with buying a new car. You can lease cars, get a new one every couple of years. Nothing wrong with that. But if that's your focus, if that's what you're working for, well, that's a problem. My wife is annoying that way because she doesn't care what she drives. It could be falling apart as long as it gets her from point A to point B. It's me, I'm covetousness. I have covetousness. I drive by that Porsche dealer, and I'm like, I would look good behind the wheel of one of those. That's our sinful nature. And I think that's what a lot of these kings were wrestling with. And what is covetousness? It says it today in the gospel and in the epistle lesson. Covetousness is idolatry. And what is the first commandment? Anybody? You shall have, go ahead. Right, you shall have no other gods. Right? You shall have no other gods. What does this mean? We should fear, love, and trust in God above all things. So that's idolatry. That's the it's all about a first commandment issue. And that's what these kings are wrestling with, that first commandment issue. False gods. That's why all of these guys are evil. Because they had God on their side. They had the only God on their side. Not Baal. They prayed all day to Baal and nothing happened. They have the living God on their side, and they don't remain faithful. And as I say, it's easy for us to get distracted by those things, by the stuff of life, wrapped up in those things. We're all guilty, right? We're all guilty. Yes.
Question: what is the difference of the attitude of the man in the parable and retirement?
Oh, that's a great question. I had a professor.
Can relax, eat, and drink?
Yeah.
What's the difference between that and retirement?
Yeah. So here's what I would say. It's one thing to just retire and do nothing. It's another thing to retire from the toil that you've been doing for 30 or 40 years, and then to take that free time and put it into some other endeavor that is, for the glory of God and the good of your neighbor. And I see that in a lot of people who retire, and they move down here, they retire, and then they spend time working at the church, or they spend time doing this, or they volunteer, for this service or that service, or they're, what I mean? So it's one thing, because often the jobs that we do, while they are part of what God has created and they are serving and loving and serving the neighbor, you can do that in other ways when you're retired and for good. Now, if your goal is to retire and play golf every day, Nothing wrong with playing golf occasionally, but, unless your goal is to be on the, senior tour and you're that good and you're going to then make all kinds of money and give it away and help the poor, okay. But you see, there's, I know exactly what you're saying. So that's why, I keep talking about finishing up here, moving on. I'm not retiring. I'm moving on to something else, some other congregation. And I think that's true for all of us. We don't retire with the goal of, I'm just going to lay back, right, and do nothing. Because usually what happens to those people? They die quick. They die quick. They don't have a purpose, right? And they don't live very long.
Unless it's Jim and he has no stress.
Well, that could be too. But I mean, he still used the gifts and talents that he had when he was capable of doing those things, right? I mean, you use those gifts and talents as long as you're able. Eventually, you're going to come to a point where I hear all the time, Pastor, I can't do anything anymore, and so what do I tell them to do? Well, you can pray, and we need people praying. We need people praying for the church. I need your prayers, right? You need to pray for the world, right? You can't do the things that you used to do, but you can pray. So you got a lot of free time on your hand. Pray, right? Use that opportunity to do that. So yes, it's a great question, and I think that's the answer. Work until you can retire, and then travel a little bit, but use those gifts and talents and the benefit of what you've saved for the good of others, right? Go and do other things. Use that time that you now have. Man, I talk to people all the time and they're like, I'm busier today than I was when I was working. I'm busier today than I was when I was working. Good for them. Good for them. I want to take some time and do some other things and travel a little bit, see this, see that, But I'm still going to do all those other things that I love to do. I'm still going to love, serve, Still going to preach whenever I can and serve a congregation wherever I can. I think we do those things. Look at Judy, man. Judy is a workhorse. She's here every Monday, counting money and refilling the little black, take the cards in the pews, and she's here all the time. I can't get rid of her. I try to kick her out. That's great stuff. I mean, it's great stuff. And that's what we need, right? That's what we need. And don't be surprised when you're retired and you move down here that we ask you to do stuff, right? I mean, we want you to continue to use the gifts and talents that you've been given. Okay, 2 Kings next week. Lots of stuff there, so keep reading ahead. And God be with you. Claudia is having surgery tomorrow, bright and early. Where at? On Pine Ridge? All right. What time are you going to be there? Yeah. Oh my goodness. That's awful early. I'll probably see you up there. So. All right, the Lord be with you. Yeah, you can keep those.